long gone are the dark days of winter, the long days of summer, the drag of the off-season. We have begged the gods for college football, and they answered. We are back to our weekly Saturdays of drama, twists and upsets. We are back to college football. This is your AFCB College Review Podcast. My name is Jens, and welcome to the greatest goddamn show on earth, that is college football. Joining me today is Dirk. He's our resident highlight crusher, a true believer that you do not draft a running back in the first round, and somebody with a big soft spot for the Arkansas Razorbacks. Welcome, Dirk. How are you doing, and how have you enjoyed the weekend?
I've enjoyed the weekend very much. Thank you, Jens, for this nice introduction. At the moment, I'm still a bit dizzy because I'm on painkillers right now, but that won't let me enjoy my quote-unquote old hobby of college football, because I might be watching a little bit more NFL these days than college football, but I still do watch it a lot, I have to say. And I enjoyed the weekend a lot because college football had the stage for its own. So,
will those painkillers improve the podcast of you? Do we need to expect some laid back Dirk and me taking the wheel midway the podcast?
I stayed off the shrooms, but I just took another painkiller. So let's see where this gets us.
Let me know when it hits, and we'll make sure to dive in on it. All right. So you said it's been a big weekend, and I think the number one topic that everybody will have after this weekend, both in the newspapers and in other podcasts, and for good reason, was the game between Colorado and TCU, and not really for the reasons that most people were expecting. TCU went into this game as a 20-point favorite or 20.5 favorite. Colorado was completely rebuilt under new head coach Deion Sanders, who came over from Jackson State. He kicked out everybody but 10 players. Some people even talked about 3 players that remained from the old squad. So nobody really knew what to expect from those Colorado Buffaloes. But from the first play, and I'm talking the kickoff, you immediately saw that those Buffaloes, they came to play. It looked like they were playing with their hair on fire, and they drank about 5 Red Bulls each before the game, because the first play you saw, they were immediately hyped. They had the kickoff. TCU returned, and the tackle, I think it was by the safety Woods. He tackled like his life depended on it. And from that moment on, I knew that the spread was going out of the window, and we would have like this amazing game. Did you have the same feeling as well from the start, or
before the game? I had the feeling before the game already. I posted some bets which I was placing, and one of them, it was a parlay, and one of them was Colorado TCU with the 20.5 favorites that TCU were, and I had Colorado there, and I was thinking in the back of my head already of taking them outright. Did not do it. But I was already saying, part of that was of course, the hype. And part was also that I'm not a TCU believer in this year. So that's a bit of a mixed feeling there. And I think Alexis, it's a pity that he's not here to defend himself. He said, I don't know about that TCU Colorado spread. I think he was still leaning TCU. But Deion Sanders, Coach Prime, we have to say, he already said, we coming. And then you also saw, you knew a little bit what the quality was on that roster. They had the number one recruit of 2 years ago. Yeah. They had a top quarterback with Shedeur Sanders. You knew something was coming. The rest of the roster, and especially the defense, was a question. But still, and like I said, we may have been overthinking TCU a little bit still as the defending vice champions.
I think most of them, like most of the doubters, looked for a reason to keep on doubting them after last season, because they had like this incredible run all the way to the championship game, where they were obliterated by Georgia, and rightfully so. They didn't even have like one footing in the game, and you still had like this feeling that a lot of people were thinking, okay, now we're gonna prove. Or TCU had a feeling, now we're going to prove him wrong. We're going to rebuild this roster. Although we've had to replace Max Duggan, starting quarterback last year, went to the NFL. Chandler Morris came into the game, or was going to come into the game. He started last year. He looked okay previously, and people were actually hopeful that he could even improve quarterback play for TCU. But the question was on defense. Like, they lost some pieces over there as well, and Colorado exposed them. And I think the main takeaway for this game, and we'll go into details later, is that if you're going to play Colorado in the future, you better have the offense to match those points that they can put on the board, because the offense is so explosive, and I think that's where a lot of people like kind of knew it was possible, but didn't really dare to say it, or at least not out loud. But if you look at the pieces they have, you have Shadur Sanders, son of Prime. You have like this two-way star in Travis Hunter. You have Dylan Edwards, who played like for most of his life for Coach Sanders. He's the running back. But that guy had the most receiving yards in 135, and he even had 3 touchdowns. Like, this offense is to be respected, and if you're going to play them, you better put the pieces against them in the secondary, on the offensive or defensive line, because the offensive line is not quite as great as the other pieces on offense. But watch out for this Colorado offense. The defense, still to be seen, because they had to
I might want to put a little bit of fire on the hype, even though I wrote a piece on Coach Prime. The defense of Colorado was also exposed. They still got 42 points in the bag. They suffer. Well, they got 2 red zone interceptions, which, how the game was going, should have been at least 6 or 7 points. Maybe that's on Chandler Morris's side. Travis Hunter had, of course, an incredible interception, which I think also would have been a touchdown. So that they could have gotten 50 points. So that defense is still, we'll have to see about that. But like you said,
you mentioned the Travis Hunter interception. I want to quickly pick up on that, because our in-house analyst Lorenz and a lot of other people as well, they explained how incredible that was. We did our research as well. So TCU was running what is called a mesh concept, which creates confusion in the middle of the field by having players crossing the field. And then you have this one rail route. It's also called a wheel route sometimes, which is like the running back drifting out in space and having like going into the open spaces that were created by the defense, just not knowing who to pick up. But the thing now was that Travis Hunter kind of immediately picked up on that, which is an amazing feat on its own. And he closed the gap of like 4 to 5 meters in a second or two to take that interception. And the way he took it is like, it was amazing. And I think that's one of the reasons why we can also, and it's maybe a bold prediction early into the season, but I think that guy is going to be a runner-up in the Heisman voting. I'm not saying he's going to win. Yeah. He's going to be a runner-up, because if he continues to play like this, but he had like 130 snaps last weekend, which is not feasible for the rest of the season. But if he can kind of have like a fraction of that with the highlight plays on offense and defense, I think we can expect big things from him in this year.
Yeah.
Or am I too bold in this?
It's early. That's maybe something that we say a lot of times. Like I said, it's TCU. The TCU defense was not great last year. It's not great this year. They were lucky like 4 to 5 times last year how they stumbled into the national championship game. As a runner-up, they got a preseason ranking of 17, which probably was already too high. So now we'll have to wait and see in the next few weeks what TCU will do. So that'll give us some explanation on the value of this victory, and of course what Colorado will do. But maybe Shedeur Sanders, the quarterback, needs some higher praise than Travis Hunter. Travis Hunter played 129 snaps, both on offense and defense, which is unprecedented. So that he topped it off with that interception, which put him into the spotlights. Yeah, for real. But then I saw the stats, and I think we were chatting in Discord at a time of Shedeur Sanders, and he ended the game with 38 for 47, and I've not often seen that before on a high level college football game, competitive game. He almost did not miss any throws. So I don't know. And if I had a Heisman ballot in front of me today, I might put Shedeur Sanders on top of Travis Hunter, maybe 2 and 3.
it doesn't. Okay, that's a bold statement. We'll get to that in a few minutes. But it doesn't really matter which defense you're playing. Putting up 510 yards and 4 touchdowns is impressive anyway.
Mm-hmm.
So you might play.
That's very Heisman-esque, and you know that the Heisman is a quarterback trophy, or well, it has been for a long time, with a few exceptions, of course. But okay, and we'll have to wait and see what Travis Hunter does. They're not playing a marquee schedule, and that might be a problem. But
I think for Hunter to be considered for the Heisman, I think he needs to keep on playing offense. Because that's the position where he'll get the most highlight plays, and we know that Heisman is about highlights and momentum.
And offense.
He'll have his picks, of course, but picks alone won't give you the Heisman, even though those can all be pickoffs in a mesh concept. Like you need to have the highlight plays on offense as well, and I think that's one of the reasons why he will be only a runner-up.
All right.
Yeah, but we can talk plenty about Colorado and TCU, but I think we were kind of limited today. But you also started talking about other Heisman contenders. You have Shedeur Sanders in there as well. But I think another guy who belongs in this Heisman voting is the quarterback of Florida State, Jordan Travis. He played LSU last night, actually. And it was the first real matchup that we were looking forward to, besides the hyped game of Colorado and TCU, because we had 2 top 10 teams playing each other. LSU was number 5 ranked, Florida State was number 8, and it's also it's the second game that didn't really go as expected, because I assumed that the game would be a lot better from the LSU side. Because you see 24 on the board, but the 24 or the late 7 points, the last touchdown, only came in garbage time. For a long time, the gap was too great for them to overcome in the second half. They started out quite well in the first half. It was 14-17. I think they had 3-point lead going into it, and they fell flat on their face in the second half. And I really have no explanation for it. Kelly, head coach of LSU, doesn't as well. I think he'll probably kill some of his players off, as he said that he would do at Notre Dame as well in an interview. But either Florida State is one of the greatest teams we've seen, or LSU is just a little bit overhyped, and I think I'm leaning more towards the second one.
Might be a little bit of both, as usual. By the way, Coach Kelly said that he took the loss on himself. I don't know if he'll say that in the locker room, probably not. But it was a great game. I think we need more of these games, and not on a Sunday night like this one. But the thing is, Florida State, they've been poor for about 15 years now, since the days of Jimbo Fisher. They used to be one of the greatest programs in college football, and because of the transfer portal being really lenient, they're back on top. A lot of their players, they come from other schools, but they got a lot of money behind them, and they gathered a great team this year, and I think they might be contenders, because if they beat up on an LSU, which is an SEC powerhouse, who will contend with them in the ACC?
I think Clemson is in trouble.
Yeah, we will see that tonight.
We'll have to watch them against Duke because they still have to play coming night against Duke. I think it's at home. But this Florida State team, nonetheless, no matter what Clemson does, is quite impressive. They started Jordan Travis on quarterback, who was 23 for 31 with 340 yards, 4 touchdowns, 1 interception. But the guys I was more looking forward to and who completely lived up to expectations, 2 guys I want to highlight here is Keon Coleman. He's the transfer from Michigan State.
Yeah.
He had 9 receptions for 122 yards and 3 impressive touchdowns. So that's quite all right for somebody who came into a new group with a new quarterback. But then the second guy, and he didn't get any touchdowns, but Johnny Wilson, was like the first receiver on our board for them. He's a junior, but if you look at his height and weight, it's something to admire. He's 6'7", and he weighs about 237 pounds right now.
Yeah, that's kind of slim.
For a wide receiver, it
for 6'7",
like, yeah, 6'7" is quite impressive. Knowing that you had a lot of 6'1", maybe 5'9" guys going into the last draft. If you're now looking at a 6'7" guy, I think it's 90th percentile in both categories. That's quite impressive, and that's the second receiver. He's not even the first one. So this offense is stacked, and knowing that you even have Jaheim Bell, the tight end who transferred in from South Carolina, I think, he had a touchdown as well. I think he had 50 yards. He came off a bit of an off-season last year after having about 500 the year before. But Jaheim Bell is going to be very productive in this system with Jordan Travis. So I'm really looking forward to this Florida State offense. And even on defense, they have some pieces that will go in the top 10. And the one guy everybody will keep on talking about, he didn't have a sack, but he's disruptive as he is Jared Verse, the defensive end for Florida State.
Yeah, I was quite impressed by Keon Coleman as well. Looking at his performance, that's first round NFL draft pick all day long. If you woke up yesterday and you watched college football, this weekend, he's the first wide receiver off the board. Of course, if you look at it in the long run, that's Marvin Harrison Jr. But he was the wide receiver which most impressed me this weekend, along with the other guys from FSU. So,
yeah, and I think we're quite limited on time, but I do want to say though that if this Florida State team can keep the momentum they have after last night, I see them going into the playoffs and not as a team that's going out in the first round.
No, okay. National title contenders, Florida State. We're going to see the tomahawk chop a lot of times. So.
Looking forward to it, actually. It's a fun team to watch. Great highlights to see after match day. The third game that I really want to talk about is one from another Heisman contender. It's the one of Drake May. North Carolina played SEC team South Carolina in South Carolina nonetheless, so hostile environment. But they came a win with the win there, 31-17. And it wasn't effortless, but I saw a lot of signs out of North Carolina that should scare other ACC contenders as well. And we might even have 3 contenders in there because Drake May played like Drake May would. Amazing, and in contention for the number 1 pick next year. He plays like a guy who belongs in New York for Heisman. And although he had 2 picks, and one of which was actually quite terrible in the fourth quarter, which put his team on the defense, he played like I said, like a possible number 1 pick. He had one highlight play, which I keep on rewatching for some reason. Pressure was building up in his face. There was a defender hurtling towards him, and he threw it out there, and not like it's a Hail Mary style, but he threw it in the vicinity of one of his receivers. And let's be real here, the receivers or the receiving room of North Carolina is not the one of FSU. They're a little bit less. and he still managed to come down with the ball because Drake May put it in a place where only the receiver could have got it. And that's why I'm really high on Drake May. Some people will put him in first place, and I wouldn't really argue with them because I see why you would put him there. And maybe, and last thing I will say about North Carolina before I let you prove me wrong. The one thing that we were actually looking forward to most from North Carolina was their defense, because they were terrible last year, and that's maybe a bit of an understatement. They got like 60 points that they have had to endure against Appalachian State last year in the game that that went to overtime, I think. This year, the defense looks great, and they've had 9 sacks, although granted against a line in South Carolina that wasn't too great, had to endure the loss of a starter in the second quarter. But having 9 sacks, again, you don't do that every day, and I think it's not on accident that they've had 9 sacks. So now North Carolina is a team that won't have to rely on Drake May pulling them out of bizarre situations. The defense can do it too. So I'm actually looking forward to North Carolina this season as well.
Yeah, might not agree completely about Drake May. I thought his performance was a good game manager. I'll have to say that. That one pick was indeed terrible, unavoidable. I think NFL scouts will look at that a little bit. But like you said, the defense carried the day because Spencer Rattler, the quarterback from South Carolina, had a great day himself. He actually had, I think, look at his stats. He was 30 for 39, 353 yards, but then, no touchdowns, and he got sacked 9 times.
Very Rattler-like.
Yeah, but that also gets to say something about the South Carolina O-line. I think Coach McBrown, the North Carolina coach, put together a great team because let's not forget that North Carolina normally is a basketball school. They have to play football to stay in the ACC, but nowadays they are a football team. And McBrown, who was national championship coach with Texas before, I think he put together. Well, not a dynasty, of course, but then they give away players to the NFL and they reload. So I think McBrown is doing some good recruiting on that defense, and Drake May, he doesn't have to prove himself a lot anymore. But I want to see some more consistency, and of course, 2 touchdowns, 2 interceptions is too much. They play in the ACC, so their schedule is not too rich. But we'll have to see.
Yeah, one Heisman I want to quickly talk about, and he's going to be compared to Drake May the whole year, is Caleb Williams, quarterback of USC. He again put together a stellar performance against, granted, Nevada, but he again had a highlight play, and I think this will carry into the Heisman voting at the moment, if you would call it that. He had like this scramble. I don't know on which down, but he bought himself enough time. I think it was 5-6 seconds, which he bought himself to be able to find a receiver in the end zone. He got a little bit lucky that he was scrambling for somebody to reach the end zone in time, and it resulted in a touchdown, which will always result in a highlight play, of course. But he showed again why he, to me, is the number 1 in current voting. And he will be so in the NFL as well, in the NFL draft, because he had a highlight play last week as well against San Jose State. And I think the naysayers will say, granted that they played 2 teams who are not going to be named after those games they played, USC maybe. But the highlight play he had against San Jose State was a throw of about 50-plus yards, where he got the ball to Branch, who ran it in for a touchdown, but the throw itself was completely off platform. He didn't have his feet set. He was completely off balance, and that's to me why he's currently number 1, because he had those highlight plays. Granted, they were for a touchdown against lesser teams, but he showed technique on those highlight plays, which to me is the most important thing to remember here. But I don't know, where do you stand on Caleb Williams, is he your favorite as well?
Caleb Williams, and I don't think I'm thinking of another play where he scrambles towards the sideline, and he throws off platform as well. But if you look at it from a different camera angle, he's sprinting towards the sideline and he throws a dart, right, particular with the sideline, so and straight into the receiver's arms. And when I saw that play, I thought, okay, Caleb Williams, twist your ankle now, stop playing for the rest of the year. You've proven yourself enough. I don't think he needs another Heisman. I mean, he already has one.
He's cocky enough to go for a second one. That's the thing that probably people will hate him for. He's cocky.
But he is, at this moment, the number one by far. I mean, I don't think Drake May is in the same tier. I don't think anyone is in the same tier. He is the number one overall pick. People should be thanking for them. Arizona is doing their best at this moment to gather enough negative momentum to get Caleb Williams, and they're already looking at him. I think, well, in my opinion, he doesn't have to play this year anymore. I hope he does, of course, to watch some great college football games. But he cannot rise anymore. I mean, he's already on top.
Yeah, he could do it like Smith and Jigba last year and sit out the year. He was injured as well, but Caleb Williams had an injury last year as well, who he recovered from, or what he recovered from in the off season. But you do have to ask yourself the question: is he not more injury prone, playing the way he does? And isn't it like it's best to sit out? But
he's very Mahomes-esque in his playing style. I mean, I also saw some side how do you call it, a sidearm throw, as Mahomes does. He improvises as Mahomes does. I mean, I don't want to compare him too much to him, but he can escape pressure. I mean, he's not going to get hit a lot in the NFL, I think, if he gets a decent O-line. So, well, injury prone or not, I think his playing style should prevent that.
Yeah, well, let's see. But you've talked about tanking in the draft, but I think this year a lot of teams won't need to tank to get like nice QBs, because I'm gonna sum some here. You have Caleb Williams and Drake May, 1 and 2.
I'm gonna reply whether or not I think they are high draft picks or not.
Yeah. Okay. Let me just say this first. I'm gonna name them, but I don't think they necessarily will be in the first round. What I do think is that they are worth taking on a date with a day 2 pick or an early day 3 pick, and I would still be glad if my team would take one of these. So you have Caleb Williams and Drake May. They will go top 1 and 2, whichever order. You have Shedeur Sanders.
Well, there will be the top two quarterbacks.
Yeah.
If Arizona gets the second pick as well, they might go for Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, true. So you have Shedeur Sanders.
Yeah, he's also eligible for this year's draft, but he's only played for 2 years. I was a bit surprised by that. I thought he was only for next year. And if he keeps playing the way he does, I mean, he has the size, he has the arm. Well, he's not going to get into the top mix, I think, but he might be a top 5 pick the way he's playing in this one game.
Yeah.
But I'm still following you there.
All right, perfect. 3 for 3. Then we have Joe Milton, and I'm going to say his stats first. He had 201 passing yards and 2 touchdowns with Tennessee against Virginia last weekend, and he had 2 rushing touchdowns as well.
Yeah. The thing with Joe Milton is
he's a rocket of an arm.
Yeah, but he's in his 6th year, so he's up there in age. He's he is 23. He will be 24 by the time the draft passes around, and people not tend to like that. So he's in his 6th season, and he only has, I think, about 10 starts under his belt. So actually, he's in his prove it year right now.
But if he can, it's an early day 2 for me.
Yeah, but early day 2. Yeah, might be a day 2 pick, but that's a good backup.
Certainly. And
a lot of guys like Kyle Trask, Cullen Mond, guys who went on day 2. Some of them break through, most of them will not. And
Yeah.
because of the age, I'm very concerned about Joe Milton. He's following Hendon Hooker, of course, who was also up there in age. And if he didn't get injured, I don't know if he would have been a starter in the NFL. And I don't know if Joe Milton is as good as Hendon Hooker. So, well.
All right. Then I have a few QBs that I will pair together. I have Bo Nix, Quinn Ewers, Drew Allar, and Michael Penix Jr. I see those guys as maybe late day 2 picks because you could say something about each one of them. Drew Allar needs to prove it still. Quinn Ewers, he was very highly recruited, and he has only shown flashes about what he can do.
Yeah.
Bo Nix is a little bit on the older side as well, if we're talking about age.
It seems like he's been in college forever.
Yeah.
But he started as a freshman back in the day in 2019 with Auburn.
Yeah.
But yeah,
But he's
I have
shown
the
it now
same.
with Oregon, and it could mean for him that he's going maybe a little bit earlier than the other ones, same as maybe Quinn Ewers. But I'll still have to see it this year with Oregon.
Yeah, Quinn Ewers is still in his junior year. Like, he didn't redshirt anything. He transferred from from Ohio State. But if Quinn Ewers balls out and Bo Nix balls out, Quinn Ewers will go a lot higher. Because I think Bo Nix is at his ceiling already.
Yeah. Thing is, Quinn Ewers doesn't have the luxury like Bo Nix to stay another year at Texas because you have Arch Manning waiting.
Yeah, he has to go.
Replace him. So Quinn Ewers is out by the end of the year at Texas, whether it's to another program, which I'm not sure he will thrive as much as Texas, or it's to the NFL. But of course, it will depend heavily on this year. Then one other guy you will probably be able to talk a whole lot more about is KJ Jefferson.
Yeah, I want to talk about Drew Allar also.
All right, go ahead.
He is still young. He had his first start last Saturday. So yeah, we haven't seen anything from Drew Allar. I don't know if he's even eligible for the NFL draft. I think he's about 2025 NFL draft guy, but the things
sophomore, maybe he redshirted.
Yeah, if Drew Allar, because he's born in 2004, so he's only 19 years old at this moment. He can grow into a whole lot. I mean, he also has the size. He's 6'5". He's still young. He only has one start, and they got a win, of course. But he played very well, unlike some other first-time starters. I think we need to keep an eye on Drew Allar.
Yeah.
Albeit be it for the 2025 draft.
He's a true sophomore, so he'll remain in college.
Yeah, but then of course you started talking about KJ Jefferson. I'm wearing an Arkansas jersey right now, so I have good hopes that KJ Jefferson will do very well this year. But it's a bit of the same thing. He's a fifth year player, a fifth-year senior. Of course, the COVID years is in there. But he did improve every year. Okay, he started out really bad with a low percentage, completion percentage. But last year he was at 68. These are numbers which NFL scouts really love. Low interception volume. Well, he's not up there in passing touchdowns, but that's maybe because he plays for Arkansas. But I think NFL scouts will love KJ Jefferson because of the NFL frame, the arm. He's not the greatest rusher, but still, there's a lot to like about him.
Yeah. One other guy I want to quickly highlight, and he's kind of flown under the radar last year, although he put up some great stats. He exploded last weekend. It's Michael Pratt, the junior of Tulane. They played, if I'm not mistaken, let me just look it up. South Alabama, yeah. So they played South Alabama, and the stats were mind-boggling in that game. He was 14 of 15, so a completion percentage of 93.3. He had 294 yards and 4 touchdowns. So he was 14 of 15. And he drew comparison from me to Randy Moss on Thanksgiving. Like when I watched the highlights of him, it was the first thing I thought about. And we've talked with him, or we talked with Sideline Scout about him. So Sideline Scout was a guy who did the draft preview with us, and he also said like you need to watch this guy for the next draft. He's not going to be a day one. He's going to be probably day 2, maybe day 3, but I wouldn't really underestimate what he can do. All right, Heisman. We've talked about it. We've talked about the draft. Some other quick notes, talking about quarterbacks. The quarterback problem at Ohio State. We've had Kyle McCord and Devin Brown. So Ohio State won 23-3 against Indiana, but both of them sucked.
Yes, and Ohio State is in trouble.
Yeah, if
they are.
If they can't figure out the quarterback room, they won't be top 5 even. Because Kyle McCord had 20 completions on 33 attempts. He had 239 yards and 1 interception, so didn't even have a touchdown.
Indiana. So I mean,
against Indiana, and it doesn't matter that they played at Indiana. Just you need to put on some stats. And although they come from a room where Stroud was the guy, and he has some big shoes to fill. But he's a 5-star recruit, and he should be able. He should be able to fill those shoes a little bit, but not having any touchdowns, it's atrocious. Devin Brown, 4-star recruit, came in as well, was 1 for 3, had -2 yards. On rushing, he had -3 yards, so he wasn't the solution in that game as well. So if they can figure out the quarterback room, we probably won't be talking about Ohio State come January.
No.
Yeah. The second guy I wanted to talk about, but just maybe from giving you an update, is Carson Beck, the quarterback for Georgia. People were kind of interested in seeing how he would do. I think he's a 5-star recruit, so he's replacing Stetson Bennett in that offense. He had 21 for 31 attempts, 294 yards, 1 touchdown, and he had 12 rushing yards. Was an okay debut, but you saw the connection with Brock Bowers, who's going to be the number 1 tight end drafted in the next year's draft cycle. So that's already good to see. He probably needs to pick up the pace a little bit, pick up the tempo, and I think Georgia will be fine. Carson Beck is an okay quarterback to...
Yeah, Georgia never needed great quarterbacks.
No.
I mean,
and
give me the last great Georgia quarterback. I wouldn't be able to tell it.
Jake Fromm.
I think he got cut last week.
Yeah, I think he did. And even if Carson Beck can cut it, you have Brock Vandegrift there as well, who's a young quarterback who can jump into the starting lineup. All right. So in other news, we've had a lot of blowouts as well. Oklahoma had a beatdown. They demolished Arkansas State with 0-73.
Yeah, poor Red Wolves.
Yeah, poor Red Wolves. Oregon State did the same with did the same with Portland State. They had 81 points scored against 7. Ole Miss had a beatdown as well against Mercer, 73-7. And Syracuse kind of defeated Colgate quite a bit with 65-0. Quite a lot of blowouts this week.
They are meaningless games.
Just you still want to win them, and the fact that they're these kind of blowouts kind of bog them. I think it's the first time I saw a stat that we've had this many blowouts of SEC or ranked teams.
Yeah, but these first few weeks of the season are always about giving some small schools some TV money. I mean, normally I don't watch these games. Whenever you see 2 touchdowns within 5 minutes, you know it's over. And like if the coach keeps playing the starters in these games, or not even the second stringers, they should play the third stringers. If they don't do this, you get these kind of blowouts. And yeah, you can say that the quarterbacks handle their business, but that's about it. I mean, there's nothing to be said. There were tens of games this weekend, and only not even 10 really mattered. But that's the first kind of weeks of the season.
The funny thing actually was that you saw the Arkansas State coach crying on the sideline, and that his players had to console him.
Yeah,
which
that's a killer in the US. I mean, you don't
that's a killer
cry
indeed.
unless you're
And
the Philadelphia Eagles head coach. Then you're allowed to do that. But fine. Uh,
well, then it's his. Then it just shows you're emotional. But yeah, he
yeah,
probably was emotional as well. I can't recall his name, but
I don't know, but it's a shutout. I mean, your team does not score any points, and you get blown out on national TV. Still, you should be.
yeah, don't cry.
No, 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 no.
We've had a few upsets as well. Fresno beat Purdue 39 to 35. So Purdue was last year's defending champion in the Big Ten West.
Yeah, it must be the West because the East is
Yeah,
Michigan and
yeah.
Ohio State. So.
So we kind of expected them to have a little bit of a fallback this year, but not this much. Baylor lost surprisingly 42 to 31 to Texas State.
Biggest win in Texas State history. So
Yeah, we knew Baylor was going to be bad, but not this bad. Like the defense can't cut it at all. But I think we won't be talking about Baylor for a long time this season unless they start beating big teams. And then the
they
last
won't.
one was quite thrilling, actually. Wyoming, Texas Tech ended in overtime. So Texas Tech had quite some, not saying high before the season, but people had some expectations. But they lost 35 to 33 in overtime in quite a spectacular way. With Wyoming, I think, tying on a fourth down in overtime. So Texas Tech season is over as well. While they were maybe considered to be in the running in the top three. So that's upsets from my side. I don't know if you have any other games that you watched and were quite surprised by.
We are 40 minutes into a college football podcast, and we have not mentioned Alabama once.
Yeah.
I didn't watch the game. I saw some Joe Milroe footage. I thought it was just okay. They were also playing a small school, but for a first-time starter, he did quite well. Yeah, Middle Tennessee University, or Middle Tennessee Tech. I don't know. Middle Tennessee will do just fine. I think for the first time, if we're talking about McCord, he had to follow CJ Stroud. Milroe had to follow Bryce Young. I think Milroe did the best of the two, and has some room to grow. Alabama fans are happy, I saw on Twitter. Ohio State fans were not. So I think you don't need to watch this game. The only thing you need to watch was, of course, the Virginia Tech entrance from Enter Sandman. That really means that college football is back. That's the only thing you really have to see, I think, from the about 60 games.
Some traditions, keep with you. We posted this weekend as well the Iowa tradition of waving to the pediatric hospital after the first quarter. And then one other tradition we're heavily looking forward to this season is the whiteout game at Penn State. I don't know for which date it's scheduled and which team it is, but it will be a big game under the stars. And they've done it half and half this weekend, but it was under clear blue skies. But the whiteout game for Penn State is quite impressive as well. All right, one last topic I really want to cover. We're going to follow our only Belgian in the USA, Sylvain Yondjouen. This year a lot as well. So he plays for the Georgia Tech Yellow Jackets, and they played Louisville. Quite an entertaining game. I saw the highlights and some of it live as well. But in the end, they weren't able to pull out a victory in the Mercedes-Benz Stadium. Louisville won the game 39 to 34, although Georgia Tech was up 28 to 13 at the half. Quite an entertaining game from a quarterback point of view. You have Haynes King coming in there, replacing Jeff Sims, who's going to Wisconsin, I think. He transferred out. Haynes King is coming in from Texas A&M, the star-studded team, the historically star-studded team from Texas A&M last year, who wasn't able to live up to the expectations. And first half was really quite entertaining from the Yellow Jackets. Haynes King showed that he belongs in college football. He had a lot of great throws. Connection with his receivers was on par. And then just for one or the other reason in the second half, they just fell flat on their face, and Louisville was able to score 26 points, almost unanswered. They managed to score still 6 points, Georgia Tech, in the last quarter, in the fourth one. But wasn't really a game that Georgia Tech really wanted, although there are some positive signs coming out of there. Sylvain ended the game, not really on the stat sheet, but PFF credited him with one QB hurry. But that's about the only thing that we can find on the stat sheet from him. He ended with a 57.2 defensive rate from PFF.
Yeah, problem with Sylvain is that he's the only Belgian in a D1, FBS D1 school, I think, at the moment, or at least in
FBS, yes.
in a Power 5 school. I don't know, Matthijs Lassor, where he's exactly at the moment.
It's probably FCS.
It's FCS, but yeah, Sylvain has been in with the team. Georgia Tech, of course, big name, but they've been on the low side for the last few years. So he hasn't been surrounded by the greatest team, so they don't get to shine off on him as well. He's never in the spotlight. We have to search for him on the TV stations. But yeah, let's hope that Georgia Tech bounces back from a few sad years, and then he gets some more reps, some more tackles, hopefully a sack left or right, because he's a beast.
He's on the Senior Bowl watch list. So it's possible we get to see him play over there. And once you play over there, then the path to the draft is actually completely up to you. So if he shines over there, and I think that Georgia Tech will be able to maybe pull out a bowl game. They have some big obstacles still on the road. They play Ole Miss, they play North Carolina, Clemson, Syracuse, and Georgia. But if they can pull out wins with the other games, you're right at 6-6, and we're talking bowl seasons. So let's see for Georgia Tech. I've said it in a review on our Facebook that I can see them pulling out a bowl game. Not seeing really an upset with the other teams, but if Sylvain can play as he did last year, because he had a better year last year, then we'll be able to see some highlights of him on YouTube as well.
Yeah, they have a tough schedule.
It's pretty tough.
6 wins is, if you lose to Louisville, is optimistic, I have to say.
They have SC
they have Georgia, they have Clemson, they have North Carolina, they have Ole Miss.
Look at the other games they have. They have SC State, Wake Forest,
yeah, that's a
Bowling
win.
Green, Miami, the U,
yeah,
Boston College, who lost to the FCS last weekend, and Virginia.
Yeah. So they have to beat Syracuse and Miami, actually.
Which I see them feasible to do, because I'm confident that Hayes King will find some rhythm in that offense over there.
All right,
and it's
let's
only
stay
because
optimistic
of Hayes
then.
King.
But they should have won this one because they lost on a fumble.
Yeah.
It should have been a W, but okay.
Yeah, the guard or tackle wasn't really paying attention, and Hayes King was completely left unprotected over there. And it's a pity for them that they get to lose this one, because they really deserve to win. But hey, that's college football. You need to pay attention at all times. All right. I think we're well above the 30 minutes that we foreseen. We're almost at an hour.
It was never going to be 30 minutes.
No, I actually was optimistic in saying that we wanted to do it in 15 minutes, but in the future we'll try and do it in a shorter time. But this week we've apparently had too much to say. We'll try and keep it down. Anyway, guys, this was it for our first review podcast of the season. We'll be back next week. We have some pretty interesting games coming up, which you will be able to read all about in our upcoming preview, which will be launched on Thursday or Friday. Thank you guys for being here. Dirk, thank you very much for contributing. Hopefully next week you'll be here again, or maybe somebody else. And the week after that, Alexi will maybe be back from holiday and able to join this podcast. Thank you from me, and we'll see you next week. Bye-bye, guys.